Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Okay, today's subject. What is the Ascendant? The reason I'm doing this video is because I think there are still a large number of people that don't understand the significance of the accurate time of birth. This is why I'm doing this video, and this is going to demonstrate why accurate time of birth is absolutely crucial. A lot of people know the ascendant or rising sign. They've heard of it. They may even know what their rising sign is, but that's largely to the extent where it goes. I know my rising sign is Aries or Pisces or whatever, but how is that rising sign created? Where does it come from? What is it? So this is a little bit of basic astronomy. In order for you to really understand when you're looking at your birth chart and you're looking at this circle, which is a map, a blueprint of your karma, dharma, what you've been born into. Let's just unpack one thing at a time. What we're dealing with when we're looking at a birth chart is we're dealing with what's called great circles. Okay, the first great circle, as it were, when you're looking at a birth chart and you look around the circle and you see you've got Aries as your rising sign. Well, that rising sign or ascendant point is the eastern side of the chart, right? It's where the sun ascends, rises, or anybody for that matter. But a working definition for what the ascendant is, it's basically where the ecliptic crosses the horizon at the most easterly direction in the sky. So what is the ecliptic? The ecliptic is the apparent pathway of the sun. As the sun travels through the ecliptic, the sun actually defines the ecliptic. So the sun never moves above or below the ecliptic. It's what defines what's called the ecliptic, which is where we place the 12 zodiac signs around. And I'm talking about the tropical zodiac system, not the sidereal. So that ascendant point that meets the ecliptic and the horizon meet at where the ascendant point is. So when you see your rising sign, you are seeing that because of the ecliptic and the horizon cutting, as it were, cutting a particular point, okay? Now, as I said, the ecliptic it's not an actual physical body of line, as it were. It's the apparent pathway of the sun's movement through the tropical zodiac. And as I said, the sun is always on the ecliptic. It can never be above or below it. Now, this is really interesting to understand as well. The notion of time in terms of AM and PM correlates to these great circles that I'm talking about. The first one being the ecliptic, the next one being the horizon, okay, which we see when we look to the sky, the eastern horizon, we see the western horizon, which is where the sun rises, the sun sets, okay. That's another line, a great circle. That great circle is where you see the ascendant, rising sign, and the descendant. That's what makes that part of the chart, okay? The midheaven is called the local meridian, and that's another great circle that kind of goes over your head and under your feet, if you can visualize that. So we're dealing with the ecliptic, the horizon, and the meridian, okay? These are three great circles so far that I've mentioned. This is what creates the birth chart, okay? Now, I just wanted to mention the AM and PM. The AM stands for ante, ante, meridian, which basically translates to before the sun gets to the meridian point. The meridian point is the top part of your chart. It's the MC, right? What we call the 10th house, or the MC. That's when the sun gets to that point there. Just before it gets to that point, it's still in the AM zone because the sun has risen at 6 a.m. on the ascendant. It's going around the ecliptic, basically, right? So as it travels over the ascendant and goes through your 12th house, 11th house, and 10th house, it's still morning, okay? When it gets to the MC, which it becomes PM, okay? So AM stands for ante meridian, which is where AM comes from. The abbreviation AM, when we say it's 6 a.m., that's where this comes from. PM is post meridian, okay, which that's where we get PM from. When we say it's 5 p.m., it's 6 p.m., 7 p.m., etc. This is where AM and PM comes from. So when the sun has crossed that great circle, which is called the meridian, which goes over your head and under your feet, it's actually called the local meridian. And the reason it's called the local meridian is because it's created based on where you're standing on the earth plane. So it's going to be different if you're standing in Adelaide, if you're standing in Melbourne, if you're standing in New York, etc., etc., etc. That's why it's called local meridian. It's based on the locality of wherever you are. Okay, so when the sun crosses that midheaven, if you see a birth chart that has the sun in the 10th house, close to the midheaven, the person was born around about midday, 12:30, 12 p.m., 12:15. These are very important basic astronomical understandings of what the birth chart is, because when you are looking at this birth chart, if you don't understand any of this basic stuff, you're missing a very big component of understanding, bringing that chart to life, as it were. It brings it to life when you have some understanding of the astronomy, of the earth, the sun, the ecliptic, the sun's pathway, which is connected to the tropical zodiac, as I said, which is based on the seasons, the equinox, the solstice, and so forth. And the ascendant, the rising sign that you have, which everybody knows they've got a rising sign virtually, but a lot of people don't know what it is, which is why I'm doing this video. That's the sort of basic astronomy to it, okay? Now, I'm just trying to think where to go next because I want to keep this as simple as possible. Okay, here's another reason why understanding this basic astronomy that I just shared with you, understanding the absolute importance of the rising sign. Now, the rising sign generally changes approximately every 2 hours, okay? That will differ based on certain zodiac signs and based on whether you're in the northern or the southern hemisphere. In other words, some signs rise much faster in the southern hemisphere, some rise much slower, and the same applies to the northern hemisphere. Certain signs rise faster as opposed to every 2 hours. You might get a rising sign that changes every 40 minutes, okay, in the northern hemisphere. I just did a rectification just the other day for someone who had that exact situation. These are important things to note as well. The rising sign, okay, your time of birth can be wrong by as little as 1 minute. 1 minute is all it takes in certain situations for your rising sign to be incorrect. Okay, so time of birth being wrong by just 1 minute can give you the wrong rising sign. Now, why is that important apart from the obvious, which the obvious is that you're getting the wrong rising sign? The deeper component from more of an esoteric soul spiritual level, in esoteric astrology, the rising sign defines in some way the soul, right? Because the ascendant is, you could say, the soul incarnating, okay, into the physical and taking a birth, taking a body. That's the ascendant, the physical body. The ascendant is understood in so many different ways depending on what sort of readings and studying you do. But there is a general understanding that the ascendant first house connects to the physical body. Why is that? How is that the case? It's because the ascendant is absolutely depicted and defined by the exact moment you were born. If that was 11:35 and 16 seconds, then that's what it was. If it was 11:35 or 11:40 and 55 seconds, then the soul incarnating is, there's a difference there, isn't there? So the soul incarnating into the physical, which is the ascendant, the first house, the physical body, that's got to be a fundamental, primary understanding of your life, coming into this life, coming into the physical, and then obviously the rest of the chart, which is defined by that ascendant point. So, I mean, look, house systems, which is what we use then, because we have the great circles as I explained them, but the intermediate house cusps, which derive from what's called a house system. So I frequently use the Koch house system. I sometimes look at the periphery or periphery, however you pronounce that. And I also look at whole sign houses. Now, house systems really only came into effect about 2,000 years ago, which is a long time. But nevertheless, before that, house systems didn't even exist. So charts were just drawn up from the point of view of having your ascendant, your descendant, your midheaven, and your IC. But there was no intermediate house cusps. The intermediate house cusps, by the way, will not change degree at all. It doesn't matter what house system you use. What does change significantly with regards to time of birth and house system are the 4 angles. Okay, so the ascendant, the descendant, the midheaven, and the IC. Those 4 angles of the chart more or less reflect everything that structures your life, everything that your life expresses and experiences can be in one way or another connected to those 4 angles. That ascendant, as I said, can change signs every 2 hours. Sometimes it can change every 40 minutes. It just depends. But just remember, if the time of birth, so for example, if you had 29 degrees Pisces ascendant, right? Let's just say you had that. Well, in certain instances, it could be your time of birth is wrong by 1 minute and you don't have 29 degrees of Pisces rising. You actually have 0 degrees, few minutes of Aries rising. 2 totally different signs. And we can say that about any sign that sits adjacent to each other. They're all very different. They all connect, and they're all part of this developmental process that unfolds through the entire zodiac. But it is different to have Pisces rising than to Aries rising, isn't it? So this is what the ascendant is, right? This is what makes the ascendant. This is what makes the birth chart. These great circles. The ecliptic, which is the sun's pathway. The sun is always on that pathway. It never moves up and down. We have the horizon, which is another great circle, which creates the ascendant, descendant. And then we have the great meridian, which goes over your head, under your feet, and that creates the IC-MC axis. That's what a chart is. That's how it's created. And then the intermediate house cusps are basically calculated based on which house system you use. But essentially, the 360-degree circle is divided by 12, which matches the 12 zodiac signs. So generally speaking, each house will equal approximately 30 degrees. Sometimes some houses are larger because it depends on which house system you use. You can have, for example, intercepted signs. You could have, Libra on your midheaven, Aries on the IC, and intercepted, you could have Scorpio and Taurus in the 10th and 4th houses. These are intercepted signs. And then on the cusp of the 11th, you will have Sagittarius, which basically means that that 10th house and that 4th house of your birth chart equate to over 40 degrees as opposed to 30 degrees. Meaning when you have planetary bodies moving through the 10th or moving through the 4th, you'll experience those planetary bodies in those houses where it might be for 18 months in the normal scheme of a 30-degree width house. You may experience them for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, sometimes longer. It just depends on the body. This is basic astronomy, but it helps you understand, I hope, it helps you understand what this circle of symbols is that you are actually looking at. What is that ascendant? How does that ascendant come to be? Hopefully what I've shared with you today clarifies that. And as I said, the ascendant is a relatively fast moving point in the chart. In fact, it's very fast when you compare it to the movement of the planetary bodies. The fastest moving planetary body is the moon because it moves 1 degree every 2 hours. Whereas everything else, you can be born today, sometime today, you don't know the time, and then you look at the planetary positions of the planets tomorrow, they wouldn't have changed very much at all. Okay, we're talking like the sun would have moved 1 degree. The moon is the fastest moving body, so the moon could have possibly changed signs. Okay, the point to all that is that many people are born on the 20th of December, 1981. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on the planet born on that day. But you can't get the whole picture of your soul's meaning and purpose, life purpose, what it's here to do, just by looking at the planets. You need to have that time of birth, and especially the accurate time of birth, which is when the body came into being, first house ascendant. The fastest moving points in the chart are the angles that I've just described, and something else that's called the vertex. The vertex is not spoken about a great deal from what I can see. I have spoken about it. I have done a video on it, and I've given some powerful examples of what it reflects. The vertex is a very fast-moving point in the chart. It's a mathematical calculation. It's not an actual physical body. However, one thing you need to understand with all of this as well is that the things in the chart that are the fastest moving are the most important because they correlate to the most fated circumstances that we will encounter. The vertex is used heavily in rectification and predictive work. Okay, why? It's a very fast moving body. That fast movement it makes shows you the precise timing down to virtually a day of a very specific destined event you're going to encounter, usually with another person, because the vertex correlates to very specific people that come into our life that become that vertex. In other words, they become whatever sign our vertex is in. That sign that the vertex is in is very challenging for us. It's not comfortable at all. It's very awkward, as a matter of fact. And it takes a lot of work to consciously actualize and assimilate that vertex. And in most cases, people don't. It comes through relationships and people they attract into their life that represent the archetype of that vertex, and that's what challenges them. Now, that vertex point is used a lot in predictive work and rectification work because it's a very fast-moving point. Why am I telling you that? Because, Venus is going to be in a particular sign for a few weeks. So is the Sun, so is Mercury, and so on and so forth. And, of course, when we're talking about the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they stay in one sign for years and years and years and years and years. So the slower moving things are, the more it becomes a generational, collective experience, you could say, vibration frequency. But when it comes to personalizing things, it's your time of birth that does that. And it does that by having the ability to draw up your ascendant, your entire birth chart, and give you the vertex. You can't know what vertex sign you've got if you don't have a time of birth. Absolutely not. The vertex moves very, very quickly, as does the ascendant. So faster moving things in the chart are very fated because of this reason, because they are basically absolutely 100% time dependent, accurate time dependency, whereas the rest of the planets are not. As I said, many people could be born on the 20th of December. That doesn't personalize things, okay? That just gives them, the sun in Sag. Well, how many people have the sun in Sagittarius? These are important things. I'm putting this out there just to hopefully, teach a few things that maybe some people don't understand, and also to help those that, very rarely do I have a client come to me questioning, why do I need to rectify their chart? Most people understand because they've watched my videos, or they just intuitively understand it's a process, it's a lot of work, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm putting this out there because your time of birth could be wrong by 1 minute, and that can give you an entirely different rising sign. If that's not enough to help you understand, then I don't know what is. Okay, so there it is. Just a few basic little astronomical pointers, hopefully helping you understand why time of birth, accurate time of birth, is fundamental, because it comes down to showing you the timing of things in your life. Okay, see you guys soon. By the way, before I go, thanks again to all of you for all your love and support, emails, messages, anything that you've sent our way here in Australia. Things are still not good. Things are still pretty bad. Today and yesterday I haven't been able to breathe properly, and I don't live anywhere near the fires, imagine. And the smoke is so toxic. It's like I normally just keep all my windows and doors open, winter or summer. I just love the movement of air, and I love feeling fresh air. I've had to close every single window and door, can't open them at all. It's just, and when I've gone outside, I've just been coughing, basically. It's really, really bad. So we still have a long way to go before things improve here. I said that the month of January 2020 is going to be, the most testing month, and it sure has been. But what comes next is the rebuilding, and it's going to take a long time. There's volcano eruptions happening everywhere, isn't there? I noticed today that I read somewhere that there were about, 20 earthquakes that have happened, or something to that effect, just in the last week or two or days. And then I read somewhere else that that was a very powerful symbol of the earth herself, again, purging and clearing, because the earth has chakra centers in the same way that we do with our physical body. The earth has chakras around her as well, and apparently these points of where these volcanoes have erupted, there is a lot of understanding that it is certain chakras in the earth sphere herself where she's clearing her own chakras, she's purging, and this is the result. We're seeing earthquakes and a number of different things going on, and it is a culmination of this Saturn-Pluto which has been going on for a long time if we look back to it from back in the 1980s and what things were doing there. But as I said, Saturn Pluto in Capricorn didn't occur. The last time it occurred was over 500 years ago. So we are living in defining historical times that we don't completely see the full picture yet. But I think there will be more positive things to come as time moves forward. But I think 2020 is going to take a lot of patience, a lot of strength, and a lot of faith to get through all the cracks being open and all the things that are crumbling down, which is a lot of things for a lot of people all around the world. There's a lot going on. I think 220 is going to be about trying to just to get through the changes, the devastations, everything, you know. So yeah. Anyway, Saturn and Pluto have completed their conjunction now. So Saturn is starting to, you know, move forward. It will get into Aquarius. I think it's around March. And I will come back and talk about that. So anyway, hope you're all doing really well within your own personal circumstances and your own personal challenges. We all have them, you know, in different ways. So sending you all much love, and I hope this video was helpful for you. See you soon. Bye.